Now to CNN national correspondent Suzanne Malveaux on Capitol Hill, who is now with Senator James Lankford. Lawmakers are starting to show up there. Suzanne?
Yes, good morning. Well, thank you, Senator, for joining us. I really appreciate it. And you've gotten a readout here from the team, from Vice President Pence, Kushner. And what is the bottom line here? What are they looking for in a deal that the president would sign off on to reopen the government?
The president's been very focused on border security. It's been no grand secret of that. He said that for months and months. But the argument has really been around what Chuck Schumer called the slush fund for border security that was in the previous appropriations bill. He didn't want to have just wide open undefined. So the challenge now is, how do we get that defined for exactly what that is, whether that's land ports of entry, technology, things that we don't have disagreement on border security, to try to get that clearly defined and then try to get this final bill written and done.
And what are they looking at? What's that number that they say it's okay? Because the president's saying $5 billion. Right. Chuck Schumer is nowhere near that. He says $1.3 billion. Well,
this has been the interesting challenge. So you've got the White House that says $5 billion. You have Nancy Pelosi who is zero. You have Chuck Schumer who said 1.3. We've had a Senate appropriations bill that was finished months ago that was 1.6 billion. So all these numbers that are floating around, I think we're going to end up somewhere in that range to try to figure out how to split the difference between 0 and 5 billion and to be able to try to resolve this. But the key issue is everyone wants resolution for exactly what it means when you talk about border security. What is fencing? What is land ports of entry? What's technology? What's staffing? I think there's a general agreement now that we need to do border security. Now it's figuring out how much for each amount.
So let's say you come up with a magic number, right? Somewhere between $1 billion and $5 billion. You as a Republican, how can you count on the president's word that yes, he's going to agree to this deal. Right. This is a deal that you're going to sign on to, because he said that on Wednesday and then he reneged on it and blew it up, and now here we are.
So we have the White House, the Senate, and the House of Representatives, all the leadership involved in the conversations. That's why the Vice President was sitting down with Chuck Schumer yesterday to do the final negotiations. The President is going to have to sign off on this. That's the same with any law that puts into place. We all went to the White House yesterday to be able to sign off on a criminal justice reform bill because all three bodies agreed on it. It's signed, it's now into law. We'll have to have the same thing dealing with the budget as well.
You trust that the president will carry out. If they say this is the deal that you're going to vote on, it's not going to be a test vote, it's going to be a real vote. Right. You're confident that the president, if Vice President Pence says yes, he's willing to go along with this, that he will?
I am confident of that, and we've already agreed in the Senate. We're not bringing anything to the floor until we know all three bodies have agreed to it. Then we can bring it and expedite it through the process on the floor.
And whose fault is this? Because obviously the president is pointing at the Democrats, and he has flipped the script in a way, because he has now put forward and Republicans, with the cooperation of Republicans, a new piece of legislation, not the old piece that was signed on to and agreed to before, but something new that requires more for his border wall. And the Democrats say, look, we've given enough.
Everyone during a shutdown spends all their time doing this, constantly pointing at each other, saying it's their fault, their fault. The president clearly said months and months and months ago, he's not going to sign a bill unless it has border security on it. I understand all the confusion in the last several days now on what that amount is and what that really looks like. But he's made that clear. Democrats have been clear on what amount they want to do. Republicans have been clear. Quite frankly, this is everybody sitting down in the same room to be able to resolve this. Myself, Joni Ernst, David Perdue, months ago, put out a proposal to say we can end government shutdowns in a simple way. Congress can't leave. Everybody has to stay in session on the floor to be able to resolve differences. That's the way you get things resolved. We hope to get that bill passed in the future. We tried to get it earlier done this year, but this is not just a partisan issue. This is a process issue that Congress has got to resolve. When you have differences, you don't hold the American people at harm by doing a government shutdown. Keep that funding going, but hold Congress in place until the budget work is done.
And it certainly seems like it's a failure on many people's levels and many people's parts. And I do want to go back to the frustration that I know many Republicans feel, and perhaps yourself as well, is how do you know what to bank on here? If the president gives his word, is his word worth anything? If he says, this is what we're going to do, and you all come forward, you come back and say, we're going to vote on this, and he changes his mind again.
Well, I don't know that he changed his mind. I don't know the inner workings of the White House in the previous time. There was a sense that he was going to do that, but I don't know if he ever put out a public statement that he was going to do it. I would assume the president will put out a public statement. We've come to an agreement. Here's what the agreement is, and then we'll move forward from there. But when the president puts out a public statement, the House and the Senate put out public statements, then we'll actually move forward and actually vote and get busy.
What is the timetable that you're hoping for? In light of the discussions that you've had with Pence and with Kushner, what do they want?
Right now, there's a 24-hour notice before the next vote. So it's at least 24 hours from now. But right now, we're trying to finalize all the final text. and to be able to make sure everyone's looked at it, everyone's agreed off on that text, everyone's signed off on it, and then that text will go public to all members to be able to go through it and be able to take a look at, and then we'll actually move to a vote 24 hours from there. So at any point right now, we're at least 24 hours more of a shutdown from where we are right now.
Okay, and does it matter what it's called, if it's a border wall, if it's slats or whatever?
Doesn't matter. What's funny is the Secure Fences Act passed in 2006 with overwhelming bipartisan support. It built 650 miles of fencing. Back in the day in 2006, this wasn't a partisan issue. It certainly has become a partisan issue now. But I think we should be able to agree on border security. This is an ongoing issue that historically has not been a problem.
Senator, thank you so much. We really appreciate your time. Hopefully we'll all get home for the holidays.
I hope so. Merry Christmas.
All right, thanks again. All right, that's